Hi everyone and welcome to Bike Matters. Today we're at Oulton Park for the brand new release of the Hero Hunk 440. Now this is the first time that Hero have been in the UK and they're a massive manufacturer, in fact the biggest in the world. They started their introduction by introducing themselves to Italy and now they've finally come to Great Britain and this is what they brought along with them. But anyway, stick around and deep dive as we can give you our thoughts on the Hero Hunk 440. So, this is the all-new Hero Hunk 440, a brand new model, and not only that, this is the start of Hero Motorcourt in the United Kingdom. But how does it feel and what does it ride like? When I initially looked at the specs, I was surprised to see just 27 horsepower from its capacity, and I initially drew comparisons to the likes of the Honda GB 350S we just had in review, the Royal Enfield Hunter 350, and the BSA Bantam 352. But it was when I saw the torque stats that it all made sense. This is a bike that favours its torque over its power. It's been revealed that the Hunk 440 will be priced at $3,499 plus on the road fees, which I think is fairly competitive, especially against the competition. The engine is an air-cooled long-stroke 440cc, which makes 36 Nm of torque and is limited to 6,000 revs. It may not sound like a lot, but I would compare it to how a quick diesel car feels if you've ever experienced that. Around the track, we were limited to 70 miles an hour. But it was surprisingly actually a bit of a struggle to keep to this, as the bike kept feeling like it had a lot more to give, and flat out it would do approximately 85, so I'm told. The engine doesn't feel sprightly nor particularly keen, but instead revels in the higher gears and the lower revs. Naturally it's quite buzzy too, but then again most singles tend to vibrate a fair bit anyway. It doesn't need much to get it going either, but I do find myself hitting the rev limiter frequently, as it's very quiet on board and doesn't give you too much feedback. Externally, riding with the others, it sounds great, with a throaty burble from a stock exhaust, but when riding you don't really get any of that. I would say that riding aggressively feels somewhat numb because of this. It's not the style of bike to engage you or excite you as much as the style and 43mm gold outside of KYB forks would suggest, at least from its engine anyway. The handling, on the other hand, is a different story. The handling of the Hunk is possibly my favourite aspect of it. Those KYB forks work a treat and are as supple as they are direct. To go with those forks, we get a reasonably standard twin shocks at the rear, 17-inch wheels front and rear, and a trellis frame chassis, which all weigh in to make a total of 187 kilos. It has a decent turn-in and sharp response, inspiring confidence tipping it into a bend, even with the more budget end tyres that Hero has fitted. They were a little squirmy around Oulton in the greasy, wet and leafy conditions in northern England at the end of October, but overall I was fairly impressed by its chassis and handling and could easily support a good bit more power in my opinion, something like what we see in the Triumph Speed 400 for example. Braking on the Hunk is also reasonably sufficient for the style of bike that it is. It's not a track bike by any means, but still the single 320mm disc and twin piston Bibrey caliper worked perfectly alongside the 240mm disc and single piston Bibrey at the rear. Even taking it round Oulton, it didn't particularly seem to show any signs of fade, albeit we weren't pushing on it was a filming day, not a track day, but still the braking setup seemed up to spec for the time we had on the bike, and inspired reasonable confidence out on the road sections too. Looks wise, the Hunk 440 is your classic roadster. I wasn't sure on the position of the TFT cluster personally, but maybe a fly screen can improve this in the future. One thing I did notice though was the apparent attention to detail Hero's gone to, with a little welded cover on the exhaust over the O2 sensor by the front wheel, and a nicely made cover over the oil cooler for example. The front view is possibly the best angle too, I reckon. The low mounted LED headlight, stubby mudguard and big gold forks really do make the Hunk look like a premium model, and the overall fit and finish is impressive, but only time will tell. The tech on the Hunk is somewhat basic, but then again it is just under $3,500. Aside from the welcome addition of the assistant slipper clutch, the TFT dash is bright and easy to see, with particularly nicely designed switchgear, controller that also felt tactile and easy to use. But I do wish I'd made it fully circular like Royal Enfield's Triple Dash, and not a rectangle in a circular housing. It would look like just that little bit extra premium in my eyes. Other than that, we get LED lighting all around, and the actual interface of the TFT is well finished and nicely designed. It's not too cluttered either, which is a bonus. If you want the extra data though, then a simple click of the switchgear will bring your economy and trip stats up, otherwise it's hidden away for a neat display. A USB port is also integrated into the front of the tank with a small cover, but I found it unusual that it wasn't USB-C for a start, and also unusual that the cover opens towards the front of the bike, so if you had something plugged in it would have no protection from the elements. A small thing of course, but it limits its usability, so it could be an issue for some. We weren't able to test the economy of the Hunk unfortunately, and Hero don't state a figure, But what we do know is that it comes with a 13.5 litre tank, and on top of that, as we mentioned, it loves the low revs, so we can assume it's going to be pretty fuel efficient and great as a commuter for sure. I personally think this new Hunk 440 lies more within a bike suited for someone coming up to onto an A2 licence and maybe a 125cc. It doesn't cost a great deal in comparison to other bikes in the market, and it has a brilliant chassis to get used to bigger bikes at a good pace without breakneck speeds. It would also be a great commuter, I think, as the overall riding position sits on the relaxed end of the spectrum, with a slightly aggressive lean forward. Naturally, 27 horsepower isn't a lot, but it doesn't stop you from being a fun bike that handles great, has a good bit of punch from its 36 Nm of torque, and has some proper suspension on it too. As mentioned, the GB350S and BSA Bantam are likely its closest rivals if we look at specs alone. Maybe not in appearance, as it looks more in line with the Transpeed 400, I reckon. It's a kind of mashup of them all in the best way. The GB350S has 21 horsepower and 29 Nm of torque from its air-cooled long-stroke single, compared to the 27 horsepower and 36 Nm of torque on the Hero. Although the GB has more of a relaxed pace with its 5-speed gearbox, somewhat lazy geometry, and relatively basic suspension setup, not forgetting to mention the power and torque deficit over the Hero. In contrast, the Hunk is a bit more aggressive and has a tighter chassis made for sharper handling. The Honda does have the brand reputation and associated reliability though, whilst the Hero is obviously yet to be proven, especially through a harsh British winter. Pricing on the Honda is just $3,995, making it around £500 more, but for that you get a half Japanese made Honda that has a classic feel to it, something not a lot of modern classics can achieve nowadays in my opinion. Another alternative is the BSA Bantam 350. Like the Hero, the BSA is also Indian made, but comes with a slightly higher 29 horsepower, although it takes a hit with the torque at just under 30 Nm. It is, however, the same price at $3,499. Like the Hero, it also has a 6-speed gearbox and a similarly sized 13 litre tank, not too far off the 13.5 litre tank found on the Hunk. Although unlike both the Honda and the Hero, the BSA is liquid cooled, which is where it manages to find the extra power even though it is just over 100cc smaller at 334cc. The weight is also comparable, with a marginal 2 kilos difference between the two, and naturally, like the GB, the Bantam takes more of the retro approach instead of the modern roadster, so it's a matter of personal preference. And when it's time to get insurance for your motorcycle or scooter, make sure to check out Lexham Insurance, who have provided insurance solutions since 2000 and have several exclusive schemes only at Lexham. So make sure to go to lexhaminsurance.co.uk, link in the top right, to get a quote direct with them. So then, we've been out on the road and also on the track on this Hero Hunk 440 today, and all I can say is I think it's pretty great, to be honest. You've got to remember that this bike is only $3,499 plus on the road, and for that I think you get a lot of kit. The KYB forks that are 43mm at the front, they handle the roads perfectly. To be fair, although it's kind of this sort of standard like twin shock kind of sort of roadster bike, you can kind of assume, you know, for an Indian style bike that it's not always going to be that great, but I think for what it is, it's got a nice TFT display, some proper forks on it, really nice kit on this bike, and to be fair, the whole chassis just handles really nicely. When we took it around the track as well, it just has a really nice sort of like flow and feel to it, and overall, I've been really impressed with this bike. But what do you think? Let us know in the comments below.